Cool. Uh, Evening, Jack. It's actually evening on your end, so I realize it's
Yep.
probably not appropriate for me to say morning, but evening.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about Against the Singularity Hypothesis by Jack. Wait, no, David. David Thorstad is yeah. So I think like the way I like might want to start this is to like give my version of what I think the singularity hypothesis is, and then like you
hmm
can either update that definition or like give your own definition or whatever. And then like I've got a bunch of questions I like would like to ask you, and I imagine questions you might want to ask me as well. So yeah. So the way I think I understand the singularity hypothesis is that if you have this like super intelligent machine, so a machine that's like who has the intelligence far greater than the most intelligent human being, right? And the super intelligent system, I think David Chalmers calls it like AI plus. If you have this AI plus system and that begins to improve itself, so this like self recursive improvement, um, once that happens, you get this sort of spiral or this like sort of like slippery slope happening where like this machine continuously updates on itself. It becomes more and more intelligent. So if you have AI plus, you have an AI plus plus, which is like even more intelligent, and you keep getting these systems that are like so much more intelligent than human beings. And eventually you reach like this point of like singularity where like you just have like a really intelligent machine. And um yeah, this is like some my like vague understanding of what I think the singularity hypothesis is. It's just like if there is a super intelligent system, it will improve on itself, and because of that, we should like be concerned because we're just gonna have a really super intelligent machine that's like way smarter than all of us. And like I think the comparison is something like humans to mice is like the analogy to like us and like the super intelligent system. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Maybe like I'd say that we don't need to start with the super intelligent system there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably my understanding from the paper is that there's like some kind of finding. We need to get like an algorithmic finding in our AI system. And once it has this, it can like kind of start that recursive process of self-improvement. So it doesn't need to start from a super intelligent stage. It can like start from a below human stage and then kind of bootstrap itself up.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Yeah.
that sound right?
Yeah. Uh, it does. So maybe like there is a difference between like I guess like yeah, I can see a version where it's like, or maybe I can't. Maybe like I think like one problem I feel, or a problem I think I have with this is like if you maybe have a like not a super intelligent system, but just maybe like an intelligent system, maybe it like can't improve on itself, and but the super intelligent system can, and maybe there's a difference between those two things. So like
Sure, sure, whatever.
yeah.
Whatever word you use to define it, but maybe super intelligent makes me think of something like on the scale of intelligence, like above humans or something. And then whatever this property you're talking about is like maybe like doesn't really depend on the position on the intelligence scale. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with you there. Yeah. Yeah. I guess yeah. Like I mean, this is like somewhat semantics.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much we're gonna go on about this for.
Yeah. So then yeah, I think like yeah, and so then sort of the singularity hypothesis is things like is something that's been like talked about by Nick Bostrom, David Chalmers, and then David Thorstad here is sort of poking holes into the arguments. And yeah, I like wonder if you thought any one of like because there's like different sections in the paper, like which one of the arguments you thought was most convincing.
Yeah, I thought it was generally convincing that like the singularity hypothesis as stated was like wrong or something. Like probably won't have sustained intelligence increase forever. But I did think there were some weak points in the argument or something where they didn't completely specify like how long of a growth period you would have that was at such a fast pace, how long of a growth period is really needed to like cause big changes to society. Um, and my take is that it's kind of sidestepping a lot of the key claims that AI safety people are making. But I definitely found it useful to read, and I agree with a lot of what Thorstad was saying, to be honest.
When you say it's sidestepping some of the arguments AI safety. researchers just make. Could you like elaborate on that?
Yeah, for sure. So my understanding is that like the AI safety community thinks there are like a lot of possible threat models from AI systems, like ones where like we do have like some short period of like rapid growth, which leads to wildly super intelligent AI. There's like other paradigms where like we have like a multipolar AI scenario with like many actors competing over resources, who all develop AGI. We have some scenarios of like slow takeoff, where maybe the world starts getting really crazy with like lots of weird AI stuff happening, which kind of like augment human capabilities. And then like there's never really one like, Froome moment. They say Froome as in like the point where the AI like suddenly becomes super intelligent or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the understanding is that in all these different scenarios, there's like different ways that a risk could be caused. Like there could be like deceptive AI, which maybe acts aligned for like a long time. Then eventually, once it believes it's safe and like has enough power mass, it like does some sudden turn against humanity. There's like other situations where maybe there's some more subtle thing going on where the AI is like gradually eroding human like capabilities or like human society in ways that we can't really tell until eventually things have kind of gone bad all around us and no one's able to put ways to stop it. And I don't think really any of these threat models rely on like a super strong assumption about how fast is the AI going to grow. It's more about like what kind of capabilities can like an agent have in general in a world. And um, yeah, I think that's really the key thing driving my intuition. What can an agent do in the world if it was just like smarter than humans? And like I do just think that like a lot of the threat models can still pass with like quite mild growth assumptions on like how quick is the AI going to Froome. I don't know. I think it can Froome really quickly, but just for a short period of time, and that might just be enough to push it over the edge or something.
Yeah.
It's my general take.
Uh, so like one, I think Thorosat talks about this a bit. Just like I think there's like a thing here where I'm like probably coming from like uh, a lesser understanding of AI safety and like AI models and like and so I'm like
Sure.
I might be asking very stupid questions, but I'm like gonna ask them anyways.
Yeah, go ahead. I love it.
Um, like so one thing that doesn't make sense to me is like, and I think David touches. It's been a little while since I like read this paper in its entirety. But like I think one thing that David talks about is like these AI systems like they can have bottlenecks, so like they can be bottlenecked off by like computation. And one thing I find very like compelling is like this actual thing about like there could just not be enough computation for a super intelligent system to happen, or like maybe that isn't true. Maybe we just have like a bunch of like um semiconductor chips available, and like that isn't something we should be concerned about, or like we should be concerned about that, but not like the fact that those things won't happen. But I guess the other problem I have with this is like you probably need some like human agent to actually like help build these systems, to help bring these like resources to the AI system. And I'm like, maybe one way that it does this is that it's deceptive and says I need like X amount of chips for this reason, and like the reason isn't the reason they're saying it is, and that's the reason like we could get screwed. But like fundamentally, I think if you have this like really recursive intelligent system happening, you could almost like there to me in my head there seems to be a point where okay, if you see this thing getting more and more intelligent, you'd actually want to put the brakes on it. You want to say like okay, we're going to stop here. We're not going to bring any more resources to this AI system. We're not going to let it improve. And that'll be it. And so the bottleneck is actually the humans in this case. And I wonder if you like are convinced by that or think there's like problems with this.
Yeah, it sounds reasonable. I think like in a lot of cases, we'll be able to see if the AI is getting too intelligent, and probably people won't want it to get too intelligent too fast or something. But probably most of the risk comes from some like subset of those cases where they're like it happens quite suddenly, or maybe like happens in some way that humans don't notice, or maybe the humans who are doing it aren't so worried about safety, like their Facebook AI or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I can kind of just narrows down the risk for me to like a specific set of cases.
Okay. Yeah. But I guess in your situation where there's also this like, sorry, do you call it a froom? Like
Yeah,
a
FOOM. This is like a
F
this is a
ah
Eliezer term.
So it's not Doom, it's Foom.
It's Foom. It's when the AI goes Foom and it just like it becomes hella intelligent.
Um, yeah, I guess like if you're if so maybe what I'm hearing from you is like you sound slightly convinced that there is like maybe this Foom thing that can happen where it's like super quick. I guess in that situation you could still be bottlenecked by computation, or maybe that's something you already agree with.
Yeah, thinking about this, I mean, I don't have a really good picture of like how much computers in the world, um, but I did find the bottlenecks argument just generally really persuasive. That like if you have if you have any kind of project that's trying to go forward, if there's like one bottleneck, it holds the whole thing back. And like
Yeah,
with AI systems growing more intelligent, there sure are a lot of places to be like bottlenecks, right? So I'm not sure if that's going to be like compute or like some kind of like time in the world to do experiments. But yeah, it seems like there's probably so many variables that could go wrong. It seems like they would find some kind of bottleneck that'd stop fast growth. Maybe we
yeah,
could like speculate on this for a while or something.
yeah. No, that's fair. Cool. I might
Like
pass the.
thinking,
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
oh, oh yeah, am I thinking about like computers like maybe an AI would have like initial amount of compute allocated to it when it's training up, and then um probably like we would see rapid growth in intelligence if it like managed to escape out into a big server where there was like lots more compute available. It was able to suddenly do some more mysterious intelligent enhancement like in that server. But yeah, I don't know if we have enough compute really for like major intelligence changes in AI systems. I could bring some like knowledge of deep learning into this, which says that like you need like a lot more compute to get like smaller gains in intelligence with our current algorithms. Um, it kind of follows a log curve to the best of my understanding, at least for some models like language models. This is like known as scaling laws, where like it takes uh, exponentially more compute to get like linear increases in intelligence or performance or something.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so this seems to like go counter to if my understanding is correct, like Nick Bostrom with their super intelligence book came out before so the paradigm in AI, which was deep learning, if I'm like not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Basically.
So like Nick has this like formula. I'm not sure if you've come
Mm.
across it, which is, and I think maybe David touches on it a bit, which is something like, oh, let me try and get that up. Yeah, so it says like the rate of intelligence change is equal to the optimization power by its recalcitrance. Um, and so like the way that formula works is that like as like at basically if once the optimization power is high, uh the recalcitrance, which is like basically how much optimization power do you need to put to produce a unit change of intelligence, like that'll decrease, which sounds counter to what you're saying, which is something like it gets easier as the system gets more intelligent to produce a unit of intelligence change. It's like actually much easier to do it because you need less recalcitrance. And I'm like wondering if this is just a thing where like this was what Nick hypothesized, but then like as deep learning models like came to be, then you're like, oh yes, this actually doesn't hold up.
Yeah, I read that in Thorstein's paper, and I was just like, man, that seems kind of dumb.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why recalcitrance would like get lower as you become more intelligent because there was this like metaphor that Thorstein used a lot where it's like when you're fishing for like fish in a pond, it's kind of like analogous to fishing for ideas in like in all the possible ideas you could find for increasing
Yeah.
intelligence. And it's like the more of those ideas you find, the harder it is to get ideas. You have to like, go deeper in the lake. You have to like spend more time searching around to find those new ideas. That kind of like it's pretty suggestive of like most things where you have like a diminishing pool of resources. And that kind of implies like recalcitrance would like increase as you use up more of those ideas. It
Mm-hmm.
seems pretty natural. And like the idea that recalcitrance would actually decrease seems crazy. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well,
hmm.
it. Sorry, I'm not sure if you finish with your point.
No, I'll pass on to you.
Cool, cool. So one reason I thought it might not be as crazy is like maybe the like recalcitrance decreases because like as a more intelligent system becomes more intelligent, it's easier to find ways to become more intelligent. Um, so like I'm not sure if you've come across like so when so the Open Philanthropy Project was like working on sort of mapping out its like AI risk, um yeah, just like the credence that we place on an AI system going badly. Yeah, there's a lot about this like thing about like it might get harder to find ideas, and I think Torstein talks about this as well. It's like it's harder to find, as you said, it's like harder to find these ideas to like become more intelligent. Well, like one way this like seems not so like bizarre or so crazy is like okay, if there is a super intelligent system that's way more intelligent than us, maybe it just has an easier time finding ideas or just has an easier time finding ways to optimize itself that we can't conceptualize with our own heads, but like a very intelligent system could. And so maybe I guess in that sort of situation, it seems less crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's maybe getting to technicalities here, but when I think about a system becoming more intelligent, I feel like the only thing it gains is like it's able to apply more optimization pressure um,
Right.
to the world. So this like increases, the amount of like search it can do throughout the space. Maybe it can do that more intelligently when searching for new ideas or something. But I don't know. I feel like recalcitrance should be like a property of the ideas themselves or something. It's like how much optimization power does it take to increase intelligence by a certain amount? So like we can bring more optimization power to bear there, but I feel like the fundamental problem is like just going to get harder.
Yeah. Uh okay. Yeah, yeah.
But it may just depend on how you define these numbers.
No, yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. So your point was something like um recalcitrance should so like
You're okay.
yeah, I think I'm figuring out whether I like actually maybe I should just ask like if you could like repeat that point because I
Yep.
think like there might be something I disagree with, but then maybe I don't understand your argument completely.
Yep. I'll say it again. So I'll start from. So I'm going to explain why I expect recalcitrance to increase and like intelligence is related to optimization power or something. That's kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
okay. I'll say that point. So we were previously saying that like maybe as the system becomes more intelligent, it's able to find ideas more effectively. So it's like lowers the recalcitrance of increasing its own intelligence, and then it can kind of like recursive, it can confirm, right? Um, and then my counterpoint was saying that like actually, as the system becomes more intelligent, it's just able to like apply more optimization power to problems. And my understanding of things is the recalcitrance is just like a fundamental nature of the problem itself. So it's like, as you become more intelligent, you can put more optimization power into the problem, but the problem itself like remains the same.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Right. Okay, that makes sense to me. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah. I guess because like the way an AI system would work is that it's like searching out for different solutions and not like getting better at finding the solutions in some way.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it all depends on the way you like define your definitions. Because like you
Yeah.
can say that like um you have more brute force behind your searching for solutions, right? Which would increase your optimization power. But like,
Mhm.
I don't know, man, depending on how you define these things, like if you have cleverer algorithms for searching for solutions as well, like without necessarily needing more brute force, yeah, I would still maybe count that as like optimization power. This may
Yeah.
just be like a technicality or something. Maybe we could use more rigorous terms when we're talking about this stuff.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 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 No, that makes sense. It makes sense to me. I think. Yeah. Probably because like I think my understanding of it was something like it's probably like you can like have this brute force of apply more optimization power, but then maybe a system gets better at finding the solution. But I guess yeah, like this like seems to depend on the definitions and like the way we understand
Yeah.
what's actually going on. Yeah,
Hmm.
cool. I'm happy to move on to like another one of
Yeah,
the
move
questions
on.
I had. Um, Yeah, so I think like one thing that I find like is like yeah, so like another interesting thing there is like uh yeah, so the way David like phrases or like defines the singularity hypothesis, he uses this term like there's a sort of like break in history. There's like a thing which is like, oh, once we have the singularity happen, well, what'll happen is that we'll have this discontinuity in like human history. I don't think I understand what that means, and like whether like your impression was something like, okay, once we have the singularity, um, like humans as a species will no longer be the most intelligent thing in the world, and so that's the discontinuity that happens, or is it like there's something else that I like fundamentally don't understand about this definition? And I wonder if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably just like a generally huge event in history or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kind of framing which Holden Konofsky uses in his series, The Most Important Century, when he's talking about AI stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, is there going to be something on the order of like the Industrial Revolution or the Agricultural Revolution happening with AI? Which like it seemed like it was a dramatic phase shift in society and the way things grow in the economy. Um, so that's probably
Yeah,
what it would look like if it was for the better, like a huge economic shift. Hopefully humans can get better welfare from that if things go well. There's a lot of policy stuff there, but probably
yeah,
just in general, it's like shit gets dramatic. It's like we're either gonna go crazy and become really rich, or like maybe it will go extinct. And these would be like very huge events that you want to put in history books or something.
yeah. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Cool. Um, I guess then my final question then to you is something like, do you think any anything in this paper is like you've had like a major update in like you're like, ah yes, this is like shifted my perspective on things quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. I also have a few more things I might want to bring up at the end.
Yeah, no, absolutely go for it. Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah.
down. Yeah, cool. For this question, like, yeah, I think my biggest updates were really thinking about how maybe like project management things like applied to AI safety, like how hard it is to actually do things in the real world. Like these
Mm-hmm.
are kind of Thorstad's big points against like sustained periods of exponential or hyperbolic growth in AI intelligence. He made these 2 points, which I'm struggling to remember. Let me just get my notes up.
Yeah, no worries.
Uh, yeah, okay. So yeah, so probably the two updates for like the idea of the pond, ideas getting rarer as you search for them. I was like, oh yeah, I kind of started internalizing that, and it made things look a bit harder when I'm thinking about like framing and AI growth. It like makes sense why it can be slow. Then also the point about like bottlenecks in any process. Um, I was like, oh yeah, now it makes sense that people have brought up bottlenecks like this when I've tried to talk to them about AI safety. I kind of understood more what it felt like to argue from their side. And it is like a convincing kind of point that like there are a lot of things that could go wrong and any one of them could hold up the whole kind of intelligence explosion. Um,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So maybe two things I'm interested in bringing up here was like, okay, I can remember one. We'll see if the second one comes to me. So the first one
Mm-hmm.
is like, in order for AI to be a big deal, I don't think the entire singularity hypothesis, as Thorstad stated it here, like needs to hold up. Like this is why I think he's arguing like the side of the issue. Like he's made a good point in this kind of world, but I think in the real world we don't need to have sustained periods of massive growth. We can actually have relatively slow growth and still have problems in some cases. And in fact, even if we do have fast growth, it seems plausible we could just have a short period of fast growth, which is just enough to take us by surprise, and then have some crazy things happen. And these both seem really plausible, and he hasn't really argued against those things, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, like most of this does just seem like a takedown of like one scenario, right? Where it's just like the singularity happens, and like trying to like poke holes in that. There's
Mm,
less
good.
there's like less stuff about like what happens if we have fast or slow takeoff. Like these things aren't like addressed by the paper, and like I feel like that's maybe just like an academia thing where you should like just like focus on one specific thing, and that's like much easier to like get across something in a paper that way.
Mm,
uh yeah, like I feel like this yeah, so like maybe this doesn't talk about the things you're saying with like slow and fast takeoff. We have like the slow system that just like shoots off a bit and then what happens. But like maybe I feel like I fail to see the difference between like the singularity hypothesis and like the most important century sort of that Holden puts across. Because this I feel like Holden's like take on like AI is basically a retelling of the singularity hypothesis, right? Where there's like this fun little diagram that's there in Holden's pose, which is something like uh the humans get more like or there's like a yeah, there's like a system that gets more and more intelligent, and then there's just like it multiplies and multiplies, and the whole pasta, I forget
mhm,
what the actual acronym stands for, um, yeah, just like keeps on increasing. So maybe like maybe yeah, it doesn't touch on like every scenario possible, but maybe like
mm,
one of the big ones in like the EA community, or maybe a bit in the rationalist community of like um Holden's like take on all of this stuff is like some retelling of the singularity hypothesis, and maybe that's in a way I find interesting because yeah, I guess I find like some links between that, but I think you're right in saying that this like talks at the side of the argument where there's like multiple ways of probably um there's multiple ways of looking at like an AI risk scenario. So yeah.
mm. Well, maybe the way I could put it is I don't know, I think I'm saying something stronger than that, dude. I'm just gonna like jump right out there and say like,
Sure, yeah,
nah,
yeah.
this doesn't affect EA priorities, but AI safety at all. I'm gonna be strong and we'll see if I regret it later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think he's argued against like a very strong statement of the singularity hypothesis, which is like not what people are really thinking about with AI safety at all. Where like in particular, he's saying that we need to be able to defend like a sustained period of like in really fast growth in AI. So there's a few issues where like how sustained does it really need to be?
Mm-hmm.
Does it need to last like 2 years or like 10 years or like 1,000 years into the long-term future? This AI just like crazy fooming every day and just like mega foom, then mega foom the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like what we need to defend to kind of justify AI safety work? Um, yeah, and I felt a bit confused with the way he used intelligence as like a unit in a lot of cases, because we don't really know what intelligence is, and I feel like he seemed to be operating as if like AI was orders of magnitude below human intelligence, and like I don't know what the units for intelligence are, and I don't think AI is like that far below human intelligence. Um, I
Uh,
definitely am uncertain of how intelligent modern day AI systems are, but like I would actually be not surprised if they were like in the same order of magnitude as human intelligence. Like at least like in the domain of some tasks that are relevant for taking over the world, like things like strategic planning, like manipulating humans, like economic prowess, like scientific research, like managing organizations. I don't know. I don't think AI is really that far from humans in these domains. There's a
yeah.
whole lot there, but maybe the summary of my points are like um, with the way Thorstad defines intelligence, it would like basically, I think his story of things is like AI is orders of magnitude below human intelligence. So we would need to have like a period of really fast, sustained growth in order to create these like risky AI scenarios. But maybe my
Mm-hmm.
take is more like AI is not that far from human intelligence. We only need like quite a short period of rapid growth to get these risky scenarios happening, which seems a lot more plausible in the real world.
Yeah. I feel like if you're somewhat like unsatisfied with the definition of intel, or just like, because my impression is that David doesn't actually think this, like, doesn't think that AI systems are
Okay.
like, and maybe the reason I think this, no, the reason I do think this is because David uses Chalmers paper. So like Chalmers has written a bunch on like the singularity hypothesis, and there are in Chalmers paper, an AI system's like defined properly, like or like the sort of comparisons between intelligence is defined properly, and um I can't remember the exact definitions on the top of my head. I'll have to like read through the paper again, but like I think like there a system like yeah an AI system has like comparable intelligence to a human being. I think is maybe the is that I should look this up. Yeah, so yeah, in Chalmers' paper, the argument for singularity, Chalmers says, let us say that AI um, is artificial intelligence of human level or greater, and yeah, so that is at least as intelligent as the average human being. So I don't know, like maybe I'm like making a straw man argument here, right? Because I'm like relying on a completely different paper to back up David's paper. Um, but yeah, but maybe this also just doesn't get to the crux of your argument, which is something I agree with, which is like this probably doesn't like update my priors on whether I think like AI risk is actually something worth caring. Because I think it is like definitely one tiny scenario that even if it is implausible, doesn't necessarily negate any value in working on different scenarios that do exist that David doesn't talk about. So yeah,
Mm.
I agree with you there. With your like main disagreement, I think.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that sounds fair. And I was having a little scroll through the paper as well, and it seems like he's largely arguing against like people's wild claims that like AI will grow 3 orders of magnitude in intelligence like really quickly. And he was like, wow, that's a fast amount of growth to happen. Like, how quickly do you expect that to happen? That seems crazy. And I'm like, yeah, that also seems crazy to me. But probably, yeah, it wouldn't need to grow that many orders of magnitude um to
Yeah,
be something interesting.
no, yeah, you're right. Like we don't need we don't need the singularity hypothesis to happen for like us to be scared of the fact that there might be a system that is just more intelligent than us. Because like if and like I agree with you on this, we probably do have AI systems that are like comparable in our intelligence or like plausibly comparable in the level of intelligence when it comes to specific domain level tasks. Um, and you probably don't yeah you like probably maybe don't need the singularity hypothesis again to like because like yeah maybe the claims are wild but like some version of this maybe a weaker version of this can happen and maybe you're still like worried about it in that way.
Mm.
um
Mm. Yeah, sounds right. Yeah.
yeah um yeah, was there a second thing you wanted to
Second
hit your
point,
mind
I
again?
remembered it.
Nice, nice.
Um, I think it goes back to most important century. I was reminded when you were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's that I don't know. I think there's maybe a key argument for recursive self-improvement, which may be missed in this paper. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. This is like epistemic status is like speculative, could be wrong, throwing an idea out there and seeing what Gaurav thinks of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's this big idea Holden talks about in most important century of like um, the technology feedback loop or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
where he has these photos, these little graphics of like little humans who can farm a given amount of wheat, and then that wheat goes into creating more humans, and then the humans go into creating more wheat, and it's like exponential growth of the number of humans because humans produce more wheat, which produces more humans, and the amount of humans and wheat produced at each step can keep on like growing for a long time.
Yeah,
Got that first part?
yeah.
And I think like I don't know if Thorstad really addresses this. I think he like maybe he says that like it takes a lot more effort to increase intelligence as intelligent systems go on, but I might argue that like intelligent systems will be able to gain lots and lots more resources, which they can actually devote towards bootstrapping their own intelligence if they want. And maybe at the end of the day, they're able to amass so many more resources that yeah, the problem becomes harder, but they can keep on putting more and more compute, more and more time into this problem, and still have like a really quite a quick growth rate.
Yeah, I feel like this maybe like goes to like a question or a point I was maybe bringing up earlier in this conversation, which is like, so I think you're right? So like, I if a system like gets more resources, they can probably like. So I think one thing I think yeah. So David makes this like it really talks a bunch about this hyperbolic growth that happens, and I think I've like was confused as to why this was always the assumption that like David was trying to get at. Like we don't always need to have hyperbolic growth. We could have like some version of growth which is like we like shoot up, we stagnate for a bit, and then we shoot up again, we stagnate again. Like this version of something can happen, I think. David maybe seems to like miss it completely and just like focuses on the hyperbolic growth of like sustained development. Obviously, that I can see why because of like the definition that David chooses to use. So I think you're right. Like, so if we have a system that like, okay, maybe like is bottlenecked by like searching out for solutions, but then like eventually gets more computation, has like puts more optimization power towards it, then it can shoot up again. Like that can keep happening. So there's like shooting up, like stagnation for a bit, and then shoots up again, which maybe like is some analogy to human history where we haven't like always shot up in progress constantly, right? We've probably had like some periods of like maybe stagnating. Probably we've also like fallen downwards in terms of like I guess I'm using economic output as like my way of looking at this. So yeah, I don't think you're wrong. Yeah, sort of rambling at this point. But yeah, I don't think you're wrong. And then maybe it comes back to my previous point of like how it gets how it gets access to this computation. But then I feel like we've already talked about that. I don't want to touch on it again. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one counter to my argument that my inner simulator Thorstad is saying is something like bottlenecks are an issue here. Like I've kind of addressed his point about the pond and idea scarcity, but like maybe there's like lots of bottlenecks to this process of like gaining more resources than doing research, and they'll probably actually influence this growth rate we would expect to see from that feedback loop. And that like in the pure feedback loop where there's no bottlenecks, this growth happens, but in reality it's a lot messier than that. Yeah, I'm curious what you think of that kind of counter.
Sorry, could you repeat your counter again?
Yeah, sure. So my initial argument was something like we've got this sustained feedback loop of constant growth leading to more growth, leading to more growth. And then the counter is like bottlenecks will get in the way of growth.
Yeah. Okay, so this actually now does just come back to the previous point, which is something like so yeah, I think like the bottleneck argument to me was convincing and probably like goes in with my entire point about like we might stagnate for a bit where like an AI system's like bottlenecked by something. So probably computation could be one of them. So like in this situation, I think okay, so I guess these are claims I'm going to throw out there. I think it's like very plausible that like an AI system is going to be bottlenecked by something like computation because I'm like I don't see how it can like just have this like endless supply of computation to make it more and more intelligent. Um, uh, but then the second claim to that is then like maybe we have some period of being bottlenecked, but then eventually that sort of ends and then an AI system's intelligence shoots up again.
Oh, for sure.
And
Okay.
and you can have that happen. So I think like being bottlenecked can happen, but B I also don't necessarily think it's like that big of a or like you can't I can see a world where that can be overcome as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds totally reasonable. There are your point of like stagnant and then sudden growth kind of makes sense there. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything with those 2 points you think you disagree with?
Which 2 points were you talking about there?
So the points about like sort of like this idea of like stagnating and then shooting up and like bottlenecks actually being a thing, and then I guess I'm like curious on your like okay, I guess a way of asking this is like what's your take on like the bottlenecks because we've touched a bit about this, so I'm like curious if like maybe at the end of this conversation something in you is like yes, no, I still don't see this as like a big problem because we can have like fast or slow takeoffs. So I'm like curious on like what your take on this is. I'm like flipping the question back at you.
All right. bottlenecks. Wait, just to be sure, is it this question like which bottlenecks is it likely to encounter?
Uh, sure that, and also maybe just like how likely you think that is to be like a problem to actually stop the singularity from happening, maybe.
Okay, wow, that's big. I'll try it.
Sure,
I
yeah.
think I think you're right about compute being the bottleneck. I liked that image
Mhm.
of like the stagnant growth as like maybe we hit a limit on compute and then we can make some more compute, but it takes a little while to build those factories or something. And then we can start really quick growth again, then we're like bottlenecked by compute or something else at a later point.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest bottleneck. I mean, in reality, if we're imagining an AI created by an actual AI lab, there are probably a lot of things humans can do that would make it quite hard for the AI to boom. Um, Depending on like the initial starting intelligence,
Mhm.
it may be not too hard to kind of contain it and prevent it from accessing more compute. Like maybe like sandbox it, maybe turn it off. You know, it's kind of like a meme, just turn it off. But
Yeah.
it does seem like it would be pretty hard to prevent yourself getting turned off in real world. It's like it's a lot easier to grow in a fake sandbox universe when no one's stopping you. And then in the real world where you have like all these actors against you, like trying to predict your next moves, trying to block off resources, it does become a lot harder to film.
Yeah.
Um,
Could I ask you a somewhat tangential question on this?
of course, let's get so tangential.
I I'm yeah, so like you probably you've spent a bit or a bunch of time in like the AI safety space. And I'm like curious as to like what people think. So the EA forum had this thing where you could like ask any like Robin Miles was like ask any question you have about AGI and AGI safety. And like one question, maybe one thing I don't understand is like it's clear like these like AI labs like OpenAI, DeepMind, there's probably a bunch more that I just like. Those two seem to be always be the sticking ones. Like they have these safety teams there, right? They have like teams that are actually working on like the safe development of AI, and like I don't understand like why when they like, and I'm presuming if they have the safety teams, they probably like think safety is a problem. Why they choose to still then like push AI capabilities further?
Hmm.
uh, I like because like there seems to be like it just doesn't add up. Where there's like probably the safety team is like screaming out loud that how this can be like a huge existential risk. We should like not really be pushing AI capabilities faster and faster. Yet we still have like more and more breakthroughs. Um, I feel like every year, like there's more crazy shit that's coming out with AI systems that gets like the entire community more and more scared. And like, I wonder if you've like had thoughts on this or like things you might you like. Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Um, so I've talked with a bunch of people working on AI safety, like
Mm-hmm.
EA people and rationalists. I've also talked with a decent number of people just doing like plain AI research at my university. Been to some
Mm-hmm.
events. Um, and the general AI crowd is like that's very lax. They just like don't think existential risk is like really anything to worry about at all. They think it'll all be fine. Um, to go more. So this is like probably what's largely in the culture at OpenAI and DeepMind. I think they basically think that yeah, we're doing safety. The safety techniques we've got are like good enough, and it'll all be fine, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to be more particular, I think DeepMind, the leader is someone called like Demis Hassabis,
Yeah.
and his views are probably something somewhere in that camp. I think he's like interfaced with a few AI safety people, and he kind of just like thinks that they're doing enough, and that I haven't heard him talk about it. Yeah, I'll move on to Sam Altman, who is like the head of OpenAI, and
Yeah.
he's just like he's kind of crazy. He's like, um, humanity needs to enter its flourishing AGI powered future. Alignment's not too hard. We'll be okay. That's his vibe.
Yeah. That does sound very concerning.
I know,
Uh.
right? Hmm.
Yeah. I do you almost feel like it's then when they have these like safety teams, it's almost like I don't know, like safety washing almost, where it's like,
Yeah,
you like want to seem like you're actually trying to make safe AI systems, but like all you actually care about is like reaching this new paradigm with AGI, and all of the safety stuff is just a way of like making it seem like you care when you maybe don't. Maybe I'm being too harsh, and yeah,
yeah.
but
People seem to hate the term safety washing. I've heard it done a few times. Um, yeah, I think the safety teams themselves are doing pretty good work. Like the people on them are quite motivated. They're pretty good.
mhm.
Normally from the EA side, they like tend to join the safety teams at these places. Like especially DeepMind, I'm very impressed with the stuff they're putting out. Um, but the rest of the team at like OpenAI and DeepMind are pretty probably more like the general AI researcher front, and they
Yeah,
think that safety is like probably not so comparatively useful. I think they like I don't know. I may have like missed your original question, but I just think that they probably believe that they're doing enough safety.
sure, yeah, no, cool, yeah, um, yeah, that was the tangent I wanted to go on.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm happy to call this conversation here if you, unless you've got things you wanna touch on as well.
Sure. I'll have a quick scroll through my notes, but I think that's about it.
Cool, lovely job, D. Uh,
Yeah, that's all I have.
cool. I'm not sure how to do the outros to this stuff, so I'm just gonna press the stop on the record button and call it there. But no, thanks for doing this. This has been good fun.
Yeah, thanks, Gaurav. Good fun.